1 month of war after Hamas's brazen slaughter of Israelis on October 7th and retribution on Gaza that has brought the enclave to its knees. More than 10,000 Palestinians killed in airstrikes and intense bombardments, including militants, but mostly women and children. And with humanitarian needs soaring, a Security Council that just can't find its footing.
The gaps remain on what is achievable on the ground, where the political appetite is amongst some of the major players on this file, and the crisis on the ground as well. I think the most pressing need on the ground, which all council members have recognized, is the urgent humanitarian need. But I think the bigger problem, which also many council members have recognized, is that without a cessation of hostilities or some kind of humanitarian truce that is immediately implemented, far too many civilians have already lost their lives and far too many more will continue to lose their lives unless that is put into place. But those are some of the parameters of where the gaps in the discussion exist, and I think the conversations are ongoing to try and have impact on the ground.
US Secretary of State Antony Blinken left the region Monday after 4 stops in Israel, the West Bank, Iraq and Turkey, admitting that Washington's push for humanitarian pauses and an effort towards regional consensus on how to ease the suffering of civilians in Gaza while preventing a regional spillover of the conflict remained a work in progress. As council members debate various permutations, including calls for a truce from the French.
France is deeply concerned at the number of civilian casualties in Gaza, which stands at several thousand. It condemns the attacks on United Nations sites on humanitarian personnel. Given the gravity of the humanitarian situation and the scale of the needs of the Gaza population, France calls for an immediate humanitarian truce. This truce must be durable and sustained. It is absolutely necessary and must lead to a ceasefire. Safe humanitarian access to the Gaza Strip must also be guaranteed in order to increase the number of humanitarian convoys.
He also explained that President Emmanuel Macron will host an international humanitarian conference for Gaza on Thursday in Paris in an effort to better coordinate the international humanitarian response to reach Palestinians in need, a huge undertaking.
The way forward is clear. A humanitarian ceasefire now. All parties respecting all their obligations under international humanitarian law now. This means the unconditional release of the hostages in Gaza now. The protection of civilians, hospitals, UN facilities, shelters and schools now. More food, more water, more medicine, and of course fuel, entering Gaza safely, swiftly, and at the scale needed now. Unfettered access to deliver supplies to all people in need in Gaza now. And the end of the use of civilians as human shields now. None of these appeals should be conditional on the others. And for all of these, we need more funding now.
As the world waits for a change in the current dynamics on the ground, whether through regional diplomacy or a binding council resolution.
I will continue to take the current situation in Gaza as the top priority of the Security Council, and that's, I'm sure, is also your request, and we will do whatever your concerns are our concerns, and we will do whatever we can to realize the ceasefire, to protect more civilians, to avoid further humanitarian catastrophe, and also to prevent further spillover to the neighboring region.
To quote the Secretary General, act now to find a way out of this brutal, awful, agonizing dead end of destruction. Chauvin Bryce's SABC News, New York.